Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, obviously enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Tuesday, August 25th, 2026. This is live stream 1355. So the fives are wild tonight. So if you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news. And then I'll normally tackle a topic related to our hobby, which is what we'll be doing tonight. Sometimes I'll take a first look at a game, and very rarely I will share a live review. Like I said, that's pretty rare. But tonight we are going to discuss what I think as far as the announced releases from Wizards of the Coast, which focus on the history, the past of Dungeons and Dragons. Will that be enough to bring back the old guard of D&D? So you might be surprised by what I think. So we are going to discuss, of course, that is after the news. So let's not start throwing comments out there just yet. Just wait, there's a time and a place for it. Anyway, of course, when you're not watching videos here on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to see here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, because this is a live show, there is chat available. Now, you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part in chat. But if you check off that box and you want to say howdy, maybe got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight is our good friend of the show and chat moderator, the Madman. Keith Ull is with us, as is Semper Buffo, J-Man, the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D, who is our other chat moderator, is chiming in. And I see Mark Hawkswell and Shozama are all with us tonight in chat. Welcome. Before we dive into the news, got to say, sorry to hear Dolly Parton passed away. That was, I don't know. I don't want to say it was surprising. I mean, she was 80 years old, but it was kind of surprising. And I got to say, she always struck me as she was a decent human being. She was a legitimately good person who, you know, her charity work was just amazing. I mean, her literacy program for kids, I mean, millions of books were sent out to kids around the world. So just want to say, yeah, kind of sad to hear that, and happy trails to Dolly Parton. And I don't mean that with disrespect. I mean, you know, happy trails. All right. So let's see. Bard the Bear Wolfson is popping on into chat. So is Old Man Milo and Savage Splendor. Let's jump on into the news, because the updated Player's Book for Old School Essentials is arriving in November from Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral. Here's what I know. Return to the roots of fantasy adventure. Don your chainmail, grab your iron spikes, and prepare your magic missile. Glory, wonder, and doom await. This book contains a complete game rules, 13 fantastic classes, 10 classic races, full equipment lists, and over 200 weird and wonderful spells. You'll find simple rules which let imagination and fast-paced action take the spotlight. It's a clear and modern presentation which makes the game easy to learn and quick to reference. It's 100% compatible with the 1980s Dungeons and Dragons rules and with decades of classic adventures as well as other supplements. Now, keep in mind, this is the first of 2 core books. If you're a player, you just need this. If you are a game master, or in this case, referee, you will also need the Old School Essentials Referee's Book. So, the 256-page A5 size hardcover with PDF is going to carry an MSRP of $45. Now, the PDFs are available right now at DriveThruRPG. They are the updated PDFs. I know that for a fact. Even though it, you know what? I was going to say, I don't think it would show the old information. I think they're actually referring to this as the player's book, which was not the case previously. So we had the Old School Essentials Classic Rules. I think it was Classic Rules Tome. Then we had the Advanced Fantasy for Old School Essentials. And then we had the Player's Tome and the Referee's Tome for those. Now it is essentially the Advanced Fantasy is Old School Essentials. The Classic Fantasy, I think, is still going to be available, but it'll only be a PDF or print on demand from, I think it's from DriveThruRPG, to be very honest with you. So, back to the PDFs. You've got the player's book and the referee's book. Both are updated, and they each carry a price tag of $22.50. Stay tuned, because Old School Essentials is tonight's giveaway. I mean, the updated editions. In fact, it will be in PDF, in case you weren't aware of that. It will be the player's book and referee's book. So you'll have an opportunity to win. Going to give away those to one lucky viewer and then one lucky person who either lost out watching live or is watching after the fact. Very, very simple enough. So pretty cool. I like Old School Essentials. I think it's very well done. I am curious. Now, I have the updated PDFs because I have actually multiple copies of this in PDF. So that's actually what I'm giving away. This is my updates. So there you go. What I am curious about, because I have not taken a peek at these yet, do we actually get information about how to play the game? Because that was one of the items that I had mentioned to Gavin Norman when I interviewed him. And then once I reviewed Old School Essentials, both the core books, as well as, you know, the Advanced Fantasy and the Classic Rules. The one thing I had noticed was if you were familiar with role-playing games, and specifically early Dungeons and Dragons, yeah, of course, it was a snap. But if this is the first time you ever picked up a role-playing game, you might have a little confusion because there was nothing laid out there to explain the game. So, wonder if we've got that now. We'll find out. All right, we got a few more people who've popped on into chat. We've got Kevin King. Kevin R. Smith is also with us, a Tabletop Scholar. And No Limelight Productions have also popped on in. Savage Splendor says they got their free updates to their advanced books on Necrotic Gnome site yesterday. They haven't had a chance to look them over yet. I haven't either. So I've got updates on Necrotic Gnome. I got updates on DriveThruRPG. Like, yeah, okay, all righty. Tabletop Scholar says, I was waiting on the update, but honestly, I don't know if OSC is that appealing anymore. It's a flooded market at this point. Well, and you also have Dolmenwood which is very, very similar. There's some tweaks, but not a whole lot. I'll tell you one thing I know that we've got in these new editions is we've got new artwork, and there's a good amount of full color artwork as well. So the quality of the artwork has also been boosted a bit. But yes, I could see where the tabletop scholar is coming from. I would recommend OSE if someone was looking to channel basic expert and wanted a more modern approach and a more modern rules presentation. Then I would certainly say, oh yeah, by all means, get OSE. If somebody is looking to experience the true old school Renaissance as of basic expert, yeah, this would be a must own. Outside of that, not necessarily. Hey, speaking of kind of old school Renaissance, the English edition of the second supplement for the Barbarians of Lemuria role-playing game is now landing in print, and I've got the latest from Ludospherik Editions. Hopefully I've pronounced that company name close to being correct. Free your inner barbarian. Steal through the streets of Sitarla, the city blessed by the gods. Brave Hollock's hidden alleyways crawling with assassins. Explore Urseb and its catacombs to unearth ancient treasures. Embark on a quest in pursuit of the veiled god and put an end to the insidious menace threatening the jewel of Lemuria. And learn what the stars hold in store for you. In Lemuria, there is always a god to appease, a tomb to explore, a tomb to explore, and a mystery to unravel. Lemurian Chronicles 2 includes new background information and an epic saga, The Veiled God, that will take your heroes on an extraordinary adventure. How's that to point out? You need a copy of the Mythic edition of Barbarians of Lemuria in order to use this supplement. This includes a new career, the learned astrologer who reads the stars to determine men's fate. The first detailed descriptions of the cities of Sartarla, Haluk, and Urseb, brimming with new adventure seeds. Useful new information about the cult of the Grey Druids, worshippers of Nemereth. There's a ready-to-play saga in 5 acts with nothing less than the fate of Sitarla hanging in the balance. And guess who will be entrusted with this Herculean task, worthy of only the greatest heroes? The people playing next door because your group's just not good enough. No, it's going to be your group. The 196-page Lemurian Chronicles 2, The Veiled God, hardcover with PDF, carries an MSRP of $59. It is available over at Studio 2 Publishing. The PDF alone in English can be ordered from the Ludospherik website. It is 15 euros. So around 15 bucks. And I will say, I have had an opportunity to kind of glean some information about Barbarians of Lemuria, as well as the supplement that came out that's kind of the post-apocalyptic take, where it's like kind of Gamma World-ish, maybe not as gonzo as Gamma World. Well, depending on the edition of Gamma World, I guess I'll say, because some weren't very gonzo, like first edition, not gonzo. 4th edition, 7th edition, super gonzo. Yes. Anywho, it looks pretty cool. And I mentioned this last week. I have been kicking around maybe trying to run some post-apocalyptic kind of, Gamma World-ish adventures with my gang, because as I mentioned, we are never going to finish A Time to Harvest for Call of Cthulhu. So I thought to myself, I need something that the rules themselves, the core mechanics are fairly lightweight, and it looks as if this is a winner because it appears outside of just, some modifications that you make to your die rolls, right? +1, -1, whatever. It's essentially you got to roll 8 or higher on 2 6-sided dice to succeed. That's it. So I am thinking about checking this out, a little more depth. So I'm just saying, and it's not because I can't do crunchy, it's because my group can't do crunchy. It's not unusual to be running a session of Call of Cthulhu and have people asking me, what die do I roll now? The percentile dice, the 2, 10-sided dice, those that you roll all the time to do stuff. Yeah, that. Let's see. Got a few more people popping on into chat. So we have Gustavo Salzes. Believe it's a first time visit with us tonight. Grouchy Lenny has returned, and I see Buster TN. Maybe it's Buster from Tennessee. Also maybe a first time visitor because I don't recognize those 2 nicknames. Warren Davidson's also jumping on into chat and things and stuff. So got quite a few people hanging around. Very cool. Let's move on to our next news piece because Pelgrane Press and Humble Bundle have teamed to offer a money-saving deal on the Dying Earth role-playing game, and I've got the deets on the deal. Quips cut deeper than swords. Enter a decadent world of wit and danger with the Dying Earth role-playing game. Drawn from the classic tales of fantasy titan Jack Vance, prime inspiration for the settings, moods, and spells of Dungeons & Dragons, and designed by role-playing legend Robin D. Laws, explore a wondrous, exhausted world. Trade pleasantries with its ravenous and articulate creatures. Match wits with rogues, merchants, and arch-magicians, and pray your tongue is the sharper. The entire game line of rules, settings, maps, and lore, yours for a mere pittance. Before the flickering sun winks out for good and takes his bundle with it. And should prying fools dare question you, explain that your purchase is motivated not by greed for absurdly good and fleeting bargains, but by pure charitable feeling toward the World Wildlife Fund. Now you can jump aboard for as little as $5. If you want to go all in, score all 18 PDFs, you can do so. It'll take you a minimum donation of $18 through September 11th. I always think it's weird when I see that date. Just hits me and I'm like, ugh. Ugh. Hate saying that date. But some of you out there might be wondering, hey, wait a second. I thought Goodman Games has the license for the Jack Vance Dying Earth role-playing setting. And ready for this? Both companies do. I was like, wow. And I guess what they were looking at here is, I guess, Pelgrane Press, and of course, obviously enough, Goodman Games, their Dying Earth is a setting for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Mechanically, vastly different. That's why they're the same IP, but they both have licenses. Isn't that wild? That is just crazy, because I saw this and I was like, wait a second. Pelgrane Press still has the rights to sell this? And yep, there you go. All right, Laconic Lane and Clantos are popping on in. So let's see. I'm just taking a peek to see what we've got going on in chat. So Buster says yes, bingo on Tennessee. Well, I saw the TN, and I figured, yeah, I'm guessing. I'm just taking a wild guess. Grouchy Lenny says 2 companies are doing Elric games too. Yes, that is also very true. Michael Moorcock's still around. Pretty damn old. I mean, not that that's a bad thing, but I know he's got to be up there. He's got to be like 90 or in his 90s. And we've got Megan Moore popping on into chat. We got a nice chat rocking and rolling already. Let's move on to our next news piece. Because the Epic Traveler campaign Singularity is now available in a slipcase set. And I've got the lowdown from Mongoose Publishing. The Singularity has arrived, and charted space will never be the same. In this truly epic campaign, the travelers meet a godlike alien intelligence that gives them the ability to change everything. They become agents of change, using powerful new technologies to do its bidding and reshape reality. The Singularity Sourcebook provides an introduction with new equipment, maps, starships, guidelines for running a subsidized liner, and a detailed description of the express boat network that the referee will use throughout the campaign. Then we've got Singularity Act 1. Silent Dream opens with the travelers serving as the crew of the Ventura Fortuna, a luxurious starliner where they host and entertain a clientele of rich and famous nobles, titans of industry, media stars, and underworld power brokers. Embarking upon a series of adventures that span the core, the seat of empire and home to the imperial throne, they meet Nalar, an alien being that seeks their assistance with a wildly ambitious project. Singularity Act 2, Renegade Minds, and Act 3, The Glass Council, have the travelers solve ancient mysteries while simultaneously embodying their consciousnesses into an array of clones, androids, and robots to be sent on missions throughout charted space. The campaign comes to a climactic and fiery finale as they use the knowledge and power they have acquired to change the course of history. Singularity has everything you need to run this groundbreaking campaign, giving your travelers the chance to explore the limits of consciousness and technology, and the ability to determine the destiny of sentient life throughout the galaxy. Break the charted space universe, bend it to your will, remake it in your image. The slipcase set with PDFs carries an MSRP of $139.99. If you want to score the PDFs, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $79.99. And I have seen a good number of people talking about how it's like $80 for a PDF. And I can say, yes, that is kind of shocking. But it is over 600 pages of content. So it isn't as if it's a $30 PDF of, a 224-page release. I'm just a saying. But yeah, when people see that $79.99 for a PDF, I'm sure their eyes begin to bleed. Savage Splendor says Michael Moorcock is 86. Well, I would have thought he was a little older than that. Lotus Cave is joining us in chat. Buster says they haven't played Traveler in 30 years or so. It's cool. I like Traveler. I should mention, I know that Seth Skorkowski got a copy of this. So he will probably have a review in about a year. And that's not a knock on him. I mean, this is huge. This is massive. So I will take a guess. He will probably have the first in-depth review of this months down the line. And I guarantee it'll be entertaining as hell. I wouldn't be shocked if he kind of does reviews of each of the books separately. Maybe, but very nice. I don't know if I'm going to request a review copy of this from Mongoose Publishing once I wrap up the reviews of what they've sent me previously. Because this is massive. So I might actually ask them for that new campaign that had come out fairly recently where the player characters are all part of a rock band. That I would probably get a big kick out of checking out. I like Cluster Truck, where everybody's kind of like space truckers. But that was kind of cool. Von Moore said they heard a few people complaining that Old School Essentials is abandoning the classic edition rules in favor of advanced, but I don't really mind personally. Neither do I. And we'll tackle that after I wrap up this final news piece. But I have heard the same thing, and I also kind of disagree on that. All right. So, as I mentioned, our last news piece, now available in print and PDF, is Dungeon Backdrops, Lost Delves of the Nameless Mage. And here's all the info from Raging Swan Press. Centuries ago, another settlement stood where Dulwich now stands. Much of the area's ancient history has been forgotten, lost to time's remorseless advance and the fading memories of even the longest-lived folk. However, buried or lost fragments of the past yet remain. A merchant carrying out repairs in the deepest part of his cellar makes a curious discovery. A stone trap door hidden in a sealed-up room, and needs a band of brave adventurers to explore whatever lies below. This book is a compilation and tidying up of 4 dungeon backdrops: Lost Cellar of the Nameless Mage, Forbidden Halls of the Nameless Mage, deeper delvings, I should say, of the Nameless Mage, and a hidden sanctum of, anybody want to take a guess? The Nameless Mage. Lost Delves of the Nameless Mage is set in and under the town of Dulwich in the Duchy of Ashlar. As well as being one of the Duchy's largest settlements, Dulwich is a hub of adventure. The Shadowed Keep on the Borderlands lies not too many miles away to the south, while Elder's secrets lurk under the town, awaiting the arrival of blundering adventurers. You can run Lost Delves of the Nameless Mage as a standalone adventure, or you can combine it with Shadowed Keep on the Borderlands and the Sinister Secret of Dulwich to create a mega campaign. The 50-page softcover with PDF can be had over at DriveThruRPG for $10.75. If you want to just score the PDF, you can certainly do that for $6.75. And if you are not overly familiar with the dungeon backdrops, they are essentially dungeons that are not populated. So you populate the dungeon with whatever monsters and things like that. The rest of it is all taken care of. Kevin R. Smith points out Seth Skorkowski will also take a while because he likes to play stuff before he reviews it. Yeah, that went without saying. That's another thing that's going to add to the time that it'll probably take Seth to get that review out. All right. So I do see Josh Torpert is with us again. Welcome. So that is it for the news for tonight. Of course, I mentioned DriveThruRPG a few times. Don't forget, the gaming gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go visit, say, DriveThruRPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of the numerous One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a 5% commission on most sales. And all those commissions really do add up, help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you enjoy the Gaming Gang, if you find this to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, there are a couple of other ways that you can help support the outlet. First of all, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. It's weirdly humid down here today. I don't know why, because it wasn't super humid outside. So that hit the spot, actually. And of course, you can also become a monthly member of our Patreon. And during the live shows, I always like to give a shout out to our Patreon members. So, tip of the cap to Ben Oltwaite, Javal, Kevin R. Smith, Talzak, Peaceful Porcupine, William King, the Tabletop Scholar, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavalho, Kevin King, Game Cat, RPG Munch, Newcomer Ron Egan, Tier 2 DM, Fire Adrift, Pete Strakolich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, The Madman, and Flint Fireforge. Thank you all very, very much. And you will notice a good number of those people are also hanging out with us in chat tonight. Okay. So, two things. And don't forget, we are going to talk about if I think Wizards of Coast. And I think Wizards Coast can. Don't forget, we are going to talk about if I think Wizards of the Coast can bring back some of the Dungeons and Dragons old guard with their announced releases that are going to start coming out next year. That's in a few moments. But I did want to mention, so I ended up taking my car in, my SUV. So they did all the diagnostics and stuff. So then they give me an estimate of all the work that they're like, oh yeah, this is what it needs. It's like $7,300. So I'm like, some of these I could do myself. So they're like, flush the brake fluid. Yeah. Put in new spark plugs. Yeah. Like, yeah, not a problem there. So I am going to have these guys do my, they're going to do the timing belt. They're going to replace the timing belt. They're going to replace the 2 head gaskets. And they're also going to do the front control arms. So, yeah. Pricey. It's about $4,500. And I will not be shocked if they suddenly are like, oh, yeah, we had to do this. So that was an extra 100. And this was $50. Yeah. All righty. So that was that. So I also see that Chris Lundgren and Buddy mentioned, well, Buddy's not mentioning this, Chris Lundgren's mentioning this, that they're in a massive heat wave in SoCal right now. Inland valleys are expected to hit 113 tomorrow, beaches in the upper 80s. Yeah. Yeah, I was just talking with my brother because he had to pick me up at the mechanics because it was over by his house and drop me off. We were talking about how first it started off like, yeah, I can't believe these poor kids are back in school. And they went back to school like last week. I'm like, when we were kids, we didn't go back to school until like the second week of September. So nowadays, these kids, they get all of like a month and a half as far as like their summer vacation. And then they're still dumber than a box of rocks. So I don't know what the point is of keeping them in school longer. They're not learning anything, obviously enough. And get off my lawn. Winter is with us, asking what kind of car needs all that work. It's a 2010 Subaru Forester, which is actually in amazing shape body wise. And engine wise, it only had, what was it, 88,000 miles on it when I bought it. Now it's only got like 93. And it just hit 93. So it is my understanding, if I have this work done, and then there's some other stuff, but I can live without it for right now, that I can probably get, knock on wood, 100 to 150,000 more miles out of it, because it's actually a really well-regarded vehicle, except for the head gaskets. That the following year, they actually changed it out. And the head gaskets have a tendency to kind of warp a little bit over the years. So then they start to leak. So I figured, well, I'm going to get this taken care of, because I don't want, to blow a gasket. And I certainly don't want, I figured they got the engine out, might as well do the timing belt, because it's at about that point where, mileage wise, it needs a new one. So J-Man says, yep, don't buy new car junk. 2005 to 2015 models are peak. Yes. My mom's got a 93 Toyota pickup. People constantly ask her if she'd be interested in selling it. And I think right now it's like it's just pristine shape, because she babies that truck. And I think right now it's like $15,000 is Red Book on it. So Kevin R. Smith said the head gasket's probably the majority of that cost. The majority of the cost I'm paying is labor, because it's crazy. But yes, in fact, head gaskets have to be tooled at a machine shop. I'm not really up on cars, but I know a little bit. So it's not done at the mechanic. So they have to go and have a machine shop do it. That's $900. So, anyway, so I had these other mechanics down the street do, an inspection and that, and they came back with kind of the same stuff. And I went and took it to this other place because they quoted me like $700 less. And then I got in there and they're like, oh yeah, we forgot to add in the cost of the machine shop. I'm like, well, now your quote is higher than where I was before. And the guy says, well, you want it done right. And I looked him dead in the eye, because I don't take shit from anybody. I'm not an asshole, but I'm also not going to sit there and be like, ooh. So I looked him in the eye. I said, I haven't had you do any work for me ever in the past. How do I know you're going to do it right? Buster says they don't have to be tooled. They have to refinish the heads. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's, I guess, yeah. Like I said, I don't really know a ton about cars. I mean, especially like vehicles from the 21st century. Got to remember, up until about a year and a half ago, I drove an old 94 Cavalier. And I got the most out of that vehicle. I had that car, because it was my grandfather's. I had that car 20 years, maybe more than that. So I tend to take care of my vehicles and that. I'm not like, oh, it's 3,000 miles, let's go get an oil change. But I don't beat the shit out of them. So anyway, but So Buster said, you don't have to do that, the refinishing, unless the head is warped. I think that's what happens with these. So anyway, so yeah, that's fantastic. It's going to wipe me out. But like I said, I don't want to have a vehicle suddenly crap out on me. And then it's like, oh, look, it's twice as expensive or more to fix it. If it's even repairable, if, you know, whatever. So that was the one thing. The other thing, let's talk a little bit real quick about old school essentials and how there are some people who they're disappointed, I guess we'll say, that Gavin Norman and Necrotic Gnome are leaving old school essentials classic rules tome in the past and focusing on the updated old school essentials, which is now going to be those advanced books, which have been refreshed and new artwork and stuff like that, as well as Dolmenwood. Those are the focuses. They also have that, what is it, the Demonic Grimoire that they crowdfunded. That should be coming out soon enough. It's like all demons and things like that. So I don't look at it like they're leaving old school essentials behind. I got to say, old school essentials, the classic rules are still there. If you don't want to use the classes, don't use them. If you want to continue to have race as class, I'm pretty sure you can still do that with the updated rules. Once again, I haven't taken a peek yet. So they're not necessarily leaving it behind. And I have also seen Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral both say that there is a lot of OSE stuff on the horizon. So I don't think they're leaving it behind. Plus, anything that's written for BX can be run with old school essentials with very, very minor adjustments, if any. So I don't buy into it. I don't see them leaving it behind, because it's also been announced that you'll still be able to get the classic rules tome in PDF or print on demand. It's just going to be print on demand by way of drive-through RPG, as far as I know, as opposed to being from Exalted Funeral. That's it. That's all it is. So Tim Johnson says Advance works just fine with old school essentials. Yeah. Now, like I said, I don't understand why people get butthurt about everything. It's like, come on, relax. It's like, give me a break. Anyway, so I think maybe part of it is people who have the classic rules tome, but they don't have the advanced books. Are they mad that they're not getting an updated PDF or something? Maybe that could be it. So there. So as Chris Lundgren points out, yeah, they said they're going to continue to maintain it via PDF. Yeah. Kevin R. Smith says they're one of the people who are a little concerned. As long as the classic rules are still available, they're fine. Yeah, like I said, I don't know of anything out there that's indicating that they're abandoning old school essentials. Because honestly, if you look at any of their like delves, even though like they're quick delves, they do seem to be written more towards advanced than classic. But to me, they're really interchangeable, because the advanced fantasy, and I would say by extension now, the new player's book and referee's book, they're not advanced Dungeons and Dragons. They utilize a lot of ideas from AD&D, but they are still built on top of the BX chassis. All right. So Buster says, everybody's in a rush to be outraged. I know. And yes, Boomerman Dan Webb points out there's a free PDF. It's over on DriveThruRPG. It's notes on the 2026 update. Yes. Very, very cool. All right. So tonight, we're going to be talking about Wizards of the Coast, their 2027 roadmap, I guess we'll say. And if I think it's going to bring the old guard back to D&D. But first, let's talk about that contest. We're talking about Old School Essentials. So for one lucky viewer, you must get the 2 names in one line in chat. Okay? You can't give me a name and then give me another name. You got to put both names in one line in order to be in the running. Just want to get that out there because I don't want to have to sit there going, no, did they get the other one in yet or what? No. And I am going to give away the updated player's book and referee's book to Old School Essentials to one lucky viewer. And then after the fact, if you don't win, or if you're watching this after the stream is over, stay till the end. I'll tell you how you can get into the running to win another copy of those 2 for folks who, because I try to do some giveaways for people who don't have an opportunity to watch live. All right. So I will give you the trivia question. First person to give me the names of 2 artists who contributed to Basic Expert. We're talking BX is the winner. And while you're figuring out the answer to that, I think it's time for a brief intermission. Maybe. Of course, yeah, I forgot to hit that. Yeah, so become a Patreon member. Walk, walk. Here's your brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Friends, this is Red Bob. You know, every player in the Baseball Hall of Fame had one thing in common. Great as they were, every one of them was always trying to improve. It's just the same with a great company like Gulf. It never stops improving its products. Now take 1959 Gulf Super No-Nox. What a great gasoline it is. For 1959, Super No-Nox gives a new high in clean burning performance. Super No-Nox, you know, is famous as the gasoline that burns clean to protect engine efficiency. Stop at your Gulf dealers here and test a tankful of 1959 Super No-Nox. You get a new high in clean burning performance. And what's more, when you compare the price with other premium gasolines, you'll see what a really great value it is. 1959 Super No-Nox, wherever you see the Gulf orange disc.
I was a 97-ounce weakling. There I was with my favorite girl when along came the bully of the beach. Then I heard about Purina cat chow with more bodybuilding protein than any other cat food, canned or dry. It made me strong, handsome, fearless. Yeah.
My hero.
Purina cat chow, highest protein cat food.
Boys and girls, I want every one of you to have and to wear an official Secret Squadron emblem, like this one I always wear. It's very important for all members to be able to recognize each other in case of emergency. For example, when you get in a jam like this, one of the bigger boys in the neighborhood starts picking on you. Another Secret Squadron member can step in. Then watch that bully hit the road. Now, here's how to get your Secret Squadron emblem free. Go to your food store and get delicious chocolate-flavored Ovaltine. Here it is. Attached right to the top of the chocolate-flavored Ovaltine jar is your free official Secret Squadron emblem. You can wear it on your shirt front, or you can change it. Put it on your sleeve, or your hat, or your bike. Better still, get several emblems, so you'll never be without one. So today, get delicious chocolate-flavored Ovaltine. Remember, at the top of each jar, you'll find an official emblem. There's no extra cost, not 1 penny. Be the first in your neighborhood to wear your Secret Squadron emblem. But hurry, the supply is limited. When these emblems are gone, there'll be no more. So get your Secret Squadron emblems with chocolate-flavored Ovaltine today.
After 40 days of this, Noah, I bet you wish we'd brought some Wilkins coffee instead of those silly elephants.
Beyond our time, beyond our universe, there is a planet besieged by alien invaders, where a young king must rescue his love from the clutches of the beast, or risk the death of his world. A world called Krull.
Arm yourself! We'll fight together.
To this world have come the Slayers and their overlord, the Beast.
If you consent to be my queen, I will halt the attacks of the Slayers.
Their incredible power has taken the planet by force. Their inhuman savagery has got to be stopped. And these are the ones who must stop it. Thieves.
Let's just kill them and be done with it.
Warriors. Wizards. A changeling.
For that rudeness, I think I'll turn you into a goose.
A cyclops.
That's the second time you've saved my life.
A child. A king.
I give fire to water. It will not return, except from the hand of the woman I choose as my wife.
Unlikely allies.
Well, you heard him. We are now an army.
Battling an unbeatable enemy. For the life of the Princess Lissa.
He's too powerful.
And the freedom of the planet Krull. Courage lives in many worlds. But the bravest of all is Krull. A world light years beyond your imagination.
So much to unpack with all that stuff. We got the 97-ounce weakling cat. Yes, I thought that was hysterical. So I was like, oh yeah, I got to throw this in here. So we had that. Then we've got the Ovaltine commercial. Son of a bitch. A commercial? Always love that scene in A Christmas Story where Ralphie's like, oh, and you know, it's, God, now I can't remember the voiceover guy who actually the story is his. Something Shepherd. Anyway, where it's like, you know, he's like, drink your Ovaltine? Son of a bitch. And then, of course, we had Krull. Man, that was a nice, sharp trailer, huh? Most of our trailers, we're lucky if we can get them in like 480p. I saw that when it first came out well, I saw it on VHS, so probably like 89. I was like, nah, I'm going to have to watch it again. I have to give it another shot. That was the only time I ever saw it, and I was just like, it's all right. But I don't know. All righty. Okay, so rather than wait till the end of the show, if you did not win, and Grouchy Lenny was our winner, and as far as those kind of things where it's like, give me the trip, there you go, thank you. Gene Shepard. For some reason I was thinking Dan Shepard, and I'm like, no, that's not it. Gene Shepard was the author. Classic voice. I know he was a radio guy for a long time too in New York. Anywho, so if you want to get into the running to win the other copy of the Old School Essentials Player's Book and Referee's Book in PDF, super easy. I'll mention this again at the end of the show. Just have to be a subscriber. Hopefully you like the video and throw a comment into the comment section and let me know which of the 2027 Dungeons and Dragons releases, which we're going to talk about in just a moment here, would you maybe be interested in checking out? I'm not saying that, oh yeah, this is the one I'm going to buy this. I'm just saying, which one would you be like, yeah, you know, I'm kind of curious about that. All right, we've got a few more people who have popped on into chat. Another good friend of the show, Agile Monk, is with us. Daryl Arrett, Dan Murray. I know Peaceful Porcupine popped in. Tesco Love is now with us. The other thing with that crawl, I thought it's kind of funny. It's like, and a shapeshifter, and a cyclops, and a child. And it's like, oh, thank God, there's a child who's part of this team. And they show the kid's just like, it's like, okay. So Agile Monk is in a recovery room. My gosh. Hopefully you're out of there soon enough. So because he's listening, because he's dedicated to myself and the gang. Yeah, that is dedication, as Daryl points out. Well, thank you. I know a lot of times Agile Monk tunes in and he kind of just listens in. But yeah, speedy recovery to you. Anyway, okay, so tonight's topic, let's discuss. And I do want to preface this by saying, if you're tuning in because you want to hear some like hatred of Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, you are not going to encounter that. You will encounter some truth telling, right? But you're not going to get the, oh yeah, it's all shit, blah, blah, blah. No. Nope. Not at all. So I mentioned this last week. I was kind of curious, and that's why we've got this as a topic. And by all means, please chime in if you're watching live. If you want to comment in the comment section after the video's over, feel free. Anyway, I had mentioned last week, I was curious at the announced releases for 2027 for Dungeons and Dragons that Wizards of the Coast had revealed and has given more details about. If they would entice the D&D Old Guard to return, because we know that's what they're looking to do. I knew that before we even got the announcements at the keynote speech or keynote presentation at Gen Con. I had told Elliot all about what we were going to see while we were sitting there waiting for it to start. And he was like, oh my God, dude, how the hell did you know this? And I'm like, it's just, nobody announced anything. It was just, if you understand how these things work, you should have a pretty good idea of what they were aiming for. So we know Wizards of the Coast wants to get all the monies. That's their plan of attack. So they want, first of all, it's really nothing to do with the stuff that's based on the history of D&D. But they want Dungeons and Dragons to essentially be the only role-playing game people think about, including gamers. Now, you mention a role-playing game to somebody who's not a gamer, and they're like, oh, I like Dungeons and Dragons. And they're like, yeah. Because it's the only thing they can, mention. It's the only thing that comes to mind. Whereas those of you in chat who watch the channel and that, you could come up with probably 50 role-playing games alongside Dungeons and Dragons. Wizards of the Coast doesn't want that. So what Wizards of the Coast is looking to do is not only try to get the old guard back, they're also looking to try to draw people in who haven't had any interest in D&D, but they like other IPs. So we already know that towards the end of the year is Dungeons and Dragons World of Warcraft. That's going to come out. I couldn't care less about that. I'm not a World of Warcraft guy. We also have, I want to say June is when Star Wars Dungeons and Dragons is going to arrive. So these are going to be the first waves of the Hasbro, WotC, we want all the monies. But that's what it is. So let's talk about the shiny keys that were kind of waved like a little baby, and you're like, "Ooh, check out these keys." Because we've got a few different D&D releases that are slated for next year that are aimed at drawing back the old timers, the old guard who have moved away from Dungeons and Dragons for a variety of different reasons over the years. They want to bring them back in. And to do that, they figure, okay, the only way we can tempt them in is to bring back stuff that they still play to this day. Except now we're going to do it for 5.5. So we've got, let's see, first off, if I remember correctly, I think the first thing that hits is Dark Sun. I think Dark Sun's a January 2027 release. And they shared a video. I talked about this when I recapped Gen Con. They shared a video. It was maybe about a minute in length. And it was just all this graphic violence. It was animated, right? And it was like Dark Sun. And I was kind of like, okay. I was kind of taken aback by the, because all it is just, guys killing each other and like real quick cuts and stuff like that. And it's like Dark Sun and people were cheering. And I was kind of like, yeah. Oh, you okay? Kevin R. Smith says they think it's Dark Sun, World of Warcraft, then Star Wars. I thought World of Warcraft is the end of this year. I thought it's a November release. I could be wrong. It's not like I study these things, right? So it's not as if I was like, okay, so today I'm going to spend 5 hours just painstakingly looking through every single thing now. Because I don't care that much. It's the reality of it. Don't get me wrong. I do care. But it's not, I say it all the time. This is not a D&D channel. GamingGang.com is not a D&D website. It's all games. Anyway, so 2027, I think, kicks off with Dark Sun. We have heard that it is going to be an 18+ release. And there's going to be nudity. There will be some mention of slavery, although it has also been mentioned more recently that it's not going to be a big focus, which I think is kind of weird because, remember, I pointed this out previously, I have no experience with Dark Sun outside I've seen some of the Brahm artwork. That's it. I understand it's a gritty, dark setting. It's like a desert, almost like a desert land or whatever. But I I don't know. I have no experience with it either as a game master or player or whatever. But I thought slavery plays a pretty big role in it. Not necessarily that the player characters are, oh, you're going to play as a slave. But they might be a slave who has escaped. Maybe that's where they start off. I don't know. Anyway, so there's been some pushback on that. It's like, well, if you're going to get rid of that, then what's the point of bringing Dark Sun back? I've kind of gone over this a little bit last week where it's like, there are some people who sit at your table and they're like, I can own slaves. Sweet. And other people are like, no, I don't want to do that. Don't want to be playing that. A few more people popping into chat. Let's see. We have got Wild Hunter and Zadrix Games. I believe Zadrix Games is the first time visitor with us here in chat. Wild Hunter says a sanitized version of Dark Sun, no slavery, etc., no understanding of the underlying concepts. Old school players already have great resource material for this setting. Yes. Kevin King says they love Dark Sun, even bought the 4E stuff. They definitely intend to pick this up. See? And when I say the old guard, I don't necessarily mean, oh yeah, we've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since 1974. No. When I think of the old guard, I think of people who maybe 20 years ago, they were playing D&D, which wouldn't that have made it 3.5, somewhere around there? Once again, I will repeat myself. We were done with D&D by 85. So I have very minor knowledge of specifics with D&D up until like the end of 4th. Anyway, Tessie Trekkie says, Dark Sun slavery is evil, is set up in the setting as evil, and generally something to oppose, overthrow. Correct. And slavery does play a big role in a lot of sword and sorcery stories from our past that many of these settings draw inspiration from. So as far as Dark Sun goes, there are people who are curious. They want to see, what is it going to end up? Is it going to be D&D now with Dark Sun and maybe some boobies? Maybe some splashing blood? Oh, it's 18 plus. It's a mature product. And then it turns out it's not really for a mature audience. It's just got some naked tits and some blood. That is a possibility. Because I will tell you, I have received the PDFs for Unleashed Arcana and Unleashed Arcana, the hell is it? Deathfall? I forget. Because I haven't started reading the second one yet. Anyway, Unleashed Arcana, and you'll have to wait till my review. I do not have the physical books yet. So as soon as I get the physical books, then I'll shoot the reviews. But I have read through the entirety of Unearthed Arcana. And I got to tell you, and I'm going to get into more detail about this in the review, the artwork, it's some of the goofiest artwork I have yet to see in a Dungeons and Dragons release. And I thought to myself, okay, Wizards of the Coast is pushing to bring back the old timers. They get a whiff of that artwork that's in that book, and they're going to be sitting there thinking, no, nothing's changing. It's all going to be the same. Now, I do understand that was already in the planning stages. That was already probably in layout when the minds behind Wizards of the Coast decided, hey, you know what? Let's go back to our old settings and appeal to the old guard who basically are the ones who spend money now. Let's appeal to them. So I get that. I get that it was like, well, we can't change horses midstream kind of thing. That was going to be the way the book looks. But I'm telling you, some of that artwork is just, I mean, some of it's fine. And then if you happen to see my review of Dragon Bane, the Arcand City of Waves and Flames, I've responded to some people who've commented that they just hate that artwork. It's too silly. It's too cartoony. And I don't see it. And I mentioned in the review, I said, I'd rather see that artwork than that soulless digital fantasy art that we see in a lot of other role-playing games like D&D. A lot of that digital artwork just, and I get it, even the line art's done digitally nowadays. I understand that. But that real typical fantasy artwork where you're just sort of like, man, did they phone this in? I mean, it looks like technically it's good, but it's got no life to it. There's a lot of that in there. So, yes. So I was thinking to myself when I first got the PDF and I was looking at it, I was like, damn. I'm like, boy. Tim Johnson says corporate artwork. There you go. Corpo art. It's not AI, but I mean, it's not inspiring. You know? Buster says production artwork. Yeah, like just fulfilling commission kind of art. So Kevin King says no Brahm. I thought they were going to use some Brahm artwork in the new Dark Sun. Like I said, I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong. So anyway, so that was the first thing I noticed when I was reading through that. Now the content itself, the player-facing stuff, I think players are going to like. Me, it's all magic stuff, and I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, fine. You know, yeah, okay. The basic, like, first level adventure that's included, awful. Like I said, I'll get into that in my review, but I'm just saying, because supposedly the next major release for D&D is going to be Dark Sun. Yes, okay, if it's World of Warcraft or whatever's coming in November. But after that is Dark Sun. I don't think you're going to see a whole hell of a lot for Dark Sun. I think you're going to get a setting book. I think you're going to get the sort of release that we see from Wizards of the Coast that we got for like 5e, where it's like, oh, Eberron's coming back. Ta-da, here's your Eberron book. Moving right along. So I think that's what's going to end up happening with Dark Sun. One of the other reasons why I think some of these returns to various classic settings are going to be kind of one and done or two and done is because none of these settings are going to be utilized by the third-party publishers that Wizards of the Coast is teaming up with. So like Ghostfire Gaming is doing Ravenloft. Our friends over at Cobalt Press, they are going to be doing Forgotten Realms. So there is no Dragonlance, there's no Dark Sun, there's no Greyhawk, none of that, as far as the third parties at this point. So, I'm trying to Snrub Thinks is with us. I believe it's also a first-time visit in chat. Says, I'm a firm believer that this is a consequence of melding the art departments of Magic with those of Dungeons and Dragons. Magic art is meant to convey hyper-specific concepts at a glance. Dungeons and Dragons should impart a vibe. I completely agree with you on that. And that's true. A lot of the artwork that is in the Arcana Unleashed looks like it would fit right there on a Magic the Gathering card, which is fine for Magic the Gathering. Because Magic the Gathering artwork on a card isn't meant to inspire you. It's meant to be like, oh, hey, that's cool. All right, so how many mana does it take to lay this out? All right, so we've got the Dark Sun. I think Dark Sun is probably going to be the release that most of the old guard is going to be curious about. And I would think if Wizards of the Coast fumbles the ball with Dark Sun, they are going to see very lackluster responses to their other classic settings. Now, I know that Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman are working on some sort of Dragonlance project. And it's my understanding that it is a tabletop role-playing game product. It's not more novels. Aren't they in the midst of another trilogy or something? I don't know. But it's supposed to be a tabletop role-playing game product because it's been crowed about how it's the first Dungeons and Dragons Dragonlance project that they have worked on in 40 years. So we don't have to go that far back to see what 5th edition did with Dragonlance. And it wasn't much. Once again, it was a setting book. And they released a board game with the setting book. And it was like $100. If I remember right, the MSRP was $99.99. Any color, $99.99 at Earl Scheib. Yeah, that's a deep cut for some folks out there. Anyway, it was about 6-8 months later. I saw it in a Ollie's, which if you don't have Ollie's, it's like a liquidation store for $10. And it was like, oh, it's like, well, I already have a copy of this. I don't need to go pick one up for $10. So that was Dragonlance. And, once again, came and went. We also have Greyhawk. Now, Greyhawk has 2 releases that are slated for it. So there's supposed to be like a Return to Greyhawk. I think it's supposed to be a setting book. So we might actually have 3 that are maybe, kind of in the pipeline. There you go. Keith Lewis says, good old Earl Scheib. What an awful paint job. I had a buddy of mine in high school. They had body work done, and then they took it to Earl Scheib to have the car repainted. Paint all over the windows, and that was awful. It was awful. Keith Lewis says they're interested to see if Cobalt Press will delve into other areas of the realms beside the Sword Coast, which Watsy thinks is the entirety of the realms. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if Cobalt Press looks to maybe tweak some stuff that they've had like in the hopper, but they just haven't published. Maybe I'm not saying that they're lazy. Don't get me wrong, my friends over at Cobalt Press. But it would make sense if you wanted to have more product out there to take advantage of this partnership. Maybe we'll see some stuff that way, and maybe it will go beyond just the Sword Coast. But anyway, as far as Greyhawk, Luke Gygax is supposed to be involved with a lot of it. So he's supposed to be completing a Greyhawk adventure that his father had started. What it is, what's the title, I don't know. But it's supposed to be like the first like official Greyhawk release for Dungeons and Dragons in 40 years. So we've got that. And I think that's summer. I think that's going to be summer of 2027 because like late July, I think it's like slated for the last day in July is another Greyhawk adventure. It's Crown of the Witch Queen. And it's supposed to be Tasha's daughter who is looking to claim, dominion over Greyhawk. So that is that. And then I thought towards the end of the year, I thought Luke Gygax has something like Melf's Guide to Greyhawk coming out. So like I said, I think we're looking at essentially 3 releases for Greyhawk. And then supposedly Bob Salvatore or Salvatore, I think it's Salvatore, if I remember correctly, the pronunciation, is going to do some Drizzt stuff. And the way it was presented was it was not going to be like, oh, there's a new Drizzt novel coming out. It was, he was going to contribute to a game release. Now, is that the case? I don't know. But it was kind of, that's what they were kind of talking about. There were some things at the keynote that weren't really clear. So it was kind of like, just like it was kind of weird. The one really obvious person who wasn't there for the keynote was Ed Greenwood. It was kind of like, I was talking to somebody I know at Gen Con, and it was kind of like, yeah, I could see that. I could see not having Ed. It's like, yeah. I'm not saying anything. I'm not knocking him. Just there's certain stories out there floating around. You might want to look into them. Anyway, Buster says, just what we need, more Drizzt stuff. I'm using the inflection I would guess Buster is using. I don't think it's like, just what we need, more Drizzt stuff. Hey, Danny Gable's with us. Leave the windows down and Earl Scheibel do the interior for free. Bart the Beer Wolfson says, should have got Mako. Wasn't Mako the one where it's like Mako? So he honking their horn. Wild Hunter says, old school gamers like me want details, not cut down concepts and campaign outlines. All right. So, I'm gonna tell you what I think. I just wanted to kind of lay the foundation here. But what's coming out, what I know about it, things like that. So I know there are a lot of people out there who are saying there is absolutely no way anyone's going to return to D&D. That if you left D&D for any number of reasons, you're not going to come back. That these nods, because we don't know how much content is eventually going to appear for this stuff. Like I said, Wizards of the Coast is pretty well known for bringing back settings in like a 224-page book, and that's it. And then it's up to the people over on Dungeon Masters Guild and other third parties to release adventures and supplements and stuff like that. So if I use pass as prologue, I'm going to take a guess. Greyhawk's probably going to get the most. going to get those 3 releases. Will it get more than that? I don't know. I think Dark Sun will probably get the second most support. And then the, like I said, as far as I know, the Dragonlance is just one thing. And of course, we got the Drizzt. There's other stuff that I guess they're kind of floating around. But once again, there are people out there who are like, oh no, this isn't going to bring anybody back. No way. Then there are other people out there who are saying, hey, you know what? I think this is a great move by Wizards of the Coast. And you're going to see a lot of people come back to Wizards of the Coast. You're going to see a lot of people come back and embrace Dungeons and Dragons and the return of their favorite settings. I think the reality lies somewhere in the middle. And I think it lies closer to, I'm not coming back, as opposed to, yeah, I'm all in. And I think a lot of it's going to have to do, as I've already pointed out, with Dark Sun. So if Dark Sun comes out and it's like, who the hell did this? This is crazy, man. I mean, it's like all this full frontal nudity and, oh man, there's decapitations and stuff in the artwork. It's crazy. Well, they said it's 18 plus. I would take a guess. People will be like, hell yeah, man. They're legit. They're legitimately bringing back these settings for today's market. Is it going to be like that? Fuck no, it's not going to be like that. But I'm sure there are people out there who are like, man, they pushed the envelope. What if they just adopted a little bit of like that art punk vibe to things, right? I'm not saying utilize a lot of it. I'm just saying, but kind of the, you never know what you're going to get sort of thing, which I certainly don't think is going to be the case. I have a feeling that Dark Sun is going to fall short of the expectations of people who are familiar with Dark Sun and who played Dark Sun Adventures and ran Dark Sun Adventures. I think it's probably going to fall a little short. I'm not saying it's going to be terrible, but I think it will. And I'm telling you right now, if Wizards of the Coast goes in the direction of the artwork that's in Arcana Unleashed. Keep forgetting the name of it. It's going to be a clusterfuck. I have to be honest, right? Like I said, when I first started this little segment, I said, hey, you know what? If you're expecting this to be, I hate Wizards of the Coast, I hate Dungeons and Dragons, all that other stuff. Like, no, that's not how this goes. But I also believe in sharing what I think, the vibe I get. I could be absolutely wrong. Could be fantastic. I don't know. It's just, I'm using the past as prologue, as I already mentioned. Now, if Wizards of the Coast does a decent job on Dark Sun, I think you will see a lot of people checking out Greyhawk. Because I think, and once again, I could be absolutely wrong, I think there are more people out there who have an appreciation that they miss Greyhawk. I mean, myself personally, I always thought Greyhawk was sort of generic fantasy as far as the setting goes. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, if you compare it to what was available at the time, my God, it's brilliant. But nowadays, it's sort of like, okay, yeah, it's typical. It's pretty typical of, European medieval fantasy. Okay, I got you. But I think there are more people out there who played in Greyhawk Adventures and ran Greyhawk Adventures that is actually the setting that's appealing, that's going to appeal to more old timers. That it's going to, if Wizards of the Coast doesn't completely screw the pooch on Dark Sun, I think that there will be a good amount of interest in Greyhawk. Plus, we already know there are 3 releases planned for Greyhawk. So that means there is some buy-in by Wizards of the Coast into continuing to support that setting. Something I always think is really weird is you never really see any new settings from Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons and Dragons. When was the last new setting that they released? Isn't it like almost always like, oh yeah, okay, we're doing plane. Well, it's not planes. Is it Planescape? Space Jammer. Planescape's something else, wasn't it? No, Planescape was TSR, wasn't it? I don't know. Going way back there. As far as the Dragonlance, I don't know. And I got to be honest, I have no ties to Dragonlance outside of being told over the years that as a player, the adventures sucked because you felt like you were kind of like side characters in the main show, that you weren't the main attraction at your own game table. And then, most people were like, oh yeah, it's the books. I read the books. Cedric's Game says, yes, Planescape was TSR. I thought it was, but I think of the Planescape video game, which didn't it use like Numenera's rule set? That's what kind of threw me off for a second. Like, wait a second, was Planescape somebody else back in the day? Anyway, so like I said, I think there is interest. I think there are people out there who have said, you know what, I'm never going back to D&D. Who with the announcements of like, because it's like a new era, dawn of a new era of D&D is what was pushed at the keynote. So I think some folks who were like, yeah, I'm out, I'm never coming back, this has piqued their interests. And they will be curious about it. They might see, Wizards of the Coast might see more last minute sales or sales after it goes like on sale as opposed to pre-orders and stuff. Once reviews come out, and if it's like, oh yeah, it's okay, it's halfway decent, as far as Dark Sun goes. Kind of feeling I get. So I think that there are people who've said they're never coming back, who their interest is piqued, and they will consider it. And then there's other people where it's like, Wizards of the Coast could go right back to 1985 TSR verbatim, and they'd be like, I'm not going, nah. I'm not playing that again. I'm not touching D&D just because, they feel Wizards of the Coast is poisoned or has been poisoned. Yeah, there we go. Danny Gable says, dawn of a new era. I'm curious. I am. I left the keynote with a tweak of optimism, which I have mentioned before. I have been to 5. I've been to 5 events. Some were only for the press. This was open to the public. But we were there as the press. We got all access badges, which I had no idea what they represented. So we didn't bother to find out. I would say this was the most optimistic I have been leaving a presentation of the future of D&D for the next year. I mean, there have been some times where I just walked out and looked at Ellie and I was just shaking my head like, I don't get it. I just don't understand it. So that's my thoughts. I think the people who think no one's going to want this are wrong. I think the people who think, oh yeah, people are going to come running are also wrong. But I think if Wizards of the Coast can pull off Dark Sun where it's not an embarrassment, where it's like, are you shitting me? That's Dark Sun now? I think the rest of this stuff is going to line up to be more popular than people will think. So there you go. I mean, I don't know if you were like expecting me to be like, no one's going to buy this. Because no, I don't believe that at all. I will say that I don't think this classic stuff is appealing to the people who are relatively new to Dungeons and Dragons. I think most of them probably don't care. Mainly because they have absolutely no connection to it. Just like me, right? I'm like, World of Warcraft D&D, whatever. I'm sure they'll send me a review copy. I'll peek at it. I'll review it. But it's not like, oh, yeah. All right. So let's take a peek, see what's going on in chat, and then we will wrap up. Chaz as a Noble is with us once again. Welcome back. Said, I'm at a halfway point with how I feel. I'll never run or buy another Wizards of the Coast book, but if someone needed players in their games, I'd join. Well, that's mighty big of you. I understand where you're coming from. I'm teasing. It's just kind of funny. It's like, yeah, hope those guys go burn in hell. Oh, you need another player? Yeah, fine. Omenal is also with us. Settings need to be unique and intriguing. Worst things they can do is make it bland and without limitations. Dark Sun and Dragonlance need to limit classes and races so it will be unique. I understand. Chris Lundgren says, as a grognard, they admit they're going to keep an open mind. They do own 5.5. Problem is finding players in their area. They've really dried up. Wow, really? Because that's what I hear people complain all the time is that's all they can find. Maybe a game or two of Pathfinder, but it's all D&D. Flint Fireford says, I love D&D, but only play BX and first edition AD&D. I imagine some folks are holding out hope, and my prediction is they will be disappointed. If people temper their expectations, they might not be super disappointed. But if they're thinking like, oh my gosh, it's going to be Greyhawk turned to 11. No, it's not going to be that. Bard says, is there only 8 worlds or is there some? I don't know. For Dungeons and Dragons. Well, we've got all the planes. But yeah, as far as settings go, but am I wrong? I mean, hasn't it been like years and years since there's been a new setting that was supported for Dungeons and Dragons? Because it always seems like every time you turn around, and I'm not saying that they need them, but it seems every time we turn around, it's like, oh, hey, it's the rebirth of Ravenloft, which we got for 5e and 5.5. Although the 5.5 is more a horror book than specifically Ravenloft. I think that disappointed some people too, that they were expecting to be mainly Ravenloft, and it's not. I mean, there's more page space devoted to it. All right. So Bamboozle Great Crowd joined us. Keith Ula says, third-party publishers have done a better job of coming up with new settings. Case in point, Cobalt Press's Midgard. Yeah, I love Midgard. And they're not abandoning it. Remember, I talked to Dot at Gen Con, and I mentioned that. I even said, hey, you know, when you guys do Midgard releases, they have way more of an old school feel than when it's obviously something for D&D. Let's see. Grouchy Lenny says the biggest sales from the revisited settings will be newer players looking into it to see what the old school players love so much without having to pay collector prices for the out of print books. I could see that. Char points out it's crazy they didn't bring Brown back for new art. That is weird. It is kind of weird. Tesco Love says, I'm willing to take a look at it, but I'm not spending my money on it. Flint Fireforge hopes I'm right. I hope I'm right too. I've said this so many times. I root for these people because I understand. I'm not talking about the bean counters at Hasbro. You know, the people who are counting all the ducats at Wizards of the Coast. I'm not talking about them. I root for the people who are behind Dungeons and Dragons. And it changes all the time. So I hope for good releases. Like I said, the Unearthed Arcana, or no, it's Arcana Unleashed. That's why I keep screwing it up, because I keep thinking of Unearthed Arcana. Artwork, there are a few pieces that are fine, but the vast majority is just like, come on, really? It's supposed to be like an exciting fantasy role-playing game. It's not, oh, hey, I've got soup. I've got magic soup. I'm not saying that that's an image. I'm just saying that's like an example where it's like, what the fuck is that? And outside the adventure, which is crap. The actual like, oh, these are the options that players can utilize. It's pretty decent. But, you know, when they announced it, I was like, I hope it's good. When I got the PDF, I started reading it. I was sitting there thinking, hey, you know what? I hope this is good. Well, I guess the content, it's for the most part pretty good. It's the wrapping it's in is like, come on, really? Really? Wait, there's one thing that I'm going to bring up. Hopefully you'll watch my review. When I get the physical book, I will shoot the review and put it up probably that day. Because it's like, what? Huh? What is Arcana Unleashed? It's the latest D&D book. So it is that, and also, what the hell is it called? Arcana Unleashed Deadfall. I think it's an adventure book. I haven't cracked that PDF open yet. Chris Lundgren says, Jeff, you can only wage holy wars against Wizards of the Coast for so long. I hope it's turning around for reals. But as a GM, 5.5 is so complex and bloated compared to easier RPGs. It's what people expect. Oh, Kevin King says, isn't that the Thay campaign? Yes, that's what it is. You're going up against, I want to say it's a demon, and you're dealing with the Red Wizards of Thay. Here's what kind of bugs me. And this with every adventure. It's not just D&D. It's with a vast majority of modern adventures. It's where every room you walk into, every area that the player characters enter has one of two things: a trap or a monster/monsters. Everywhere they go. So and once again, dungeons nowadays are like 12 rooms. And there's your dungeon We don't get those Janelle Jacquet's sort of dungeons. No. We're not getting that. We get like 12 rooms. And usually the maps are actually pretty good. Have good amount of detail and stuff. But it's a trap, and then it's a trap. And then it's like, okay, the game master tells the player, okay, you're our rogue character, so I need you to roll XYZ. Because that's how role-playing games are played now. It's not, okay, so I'm the thief, and my job is to detect traps and to, disarm traps. So I find this line going to wherever I can tell that there's a pressure plate here. I'm not saying that the player has to sit there and be like, oh, okay, so I'm going to try this, and I'm going to do this. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the player instigates the action. We don't see that so much. It's game masters have gotten into this rut where they will just tell players, okay, so I need you to roll animal handling to see if you can get this ox under control. As opposed to the player saying, hey, you know what? I've got a really good animal handling. Let me try, and I will see if I can get this ox under control. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with somebody talking about, okay, well, I've got this on my character sheet. Let me try it. Okay. All right. It's the game master, the DM saying, okay, so you got to do this. You got to do that. So that's the traps. And that's how most modern fantasy role-playing games roll, is like that. Then we got the monsters. And it drives me nuts when every single location that's got some sort of opponent attacks as soon as the characters walk in. Oh, yes, so you walk in and it's like, oh, there's 5 rabbits. Oh, and they attack. Better get the holy hand grenade. Better have 5 of them. It's like, wait, what? And I get it. There are a lot of people out there, they just love, they love chucking dice and, battles and fighting and whoo-hoo. My opinion, that shit gets old. Now, I like to have, 2, set piece battles going in a session. 1 maybe. Yeah, remember, I run a lot of Call of Cthulhu, so we don't necessarily resort to combat much. But where it's like, okay, we're going to play for 3 hours. And it's like, okay, so you walk into this room and it's a troll and you got to kill the troll. Okay. And then you walk into the next room and it's got 2 bears and the bears attack you. Okay. Like, no. Give the players an opportunity to think for themselves. If you do that, you help unlock the imagination. If you don't, and it's all, let me tell you what thing you need to roll on your character sheet, and if you're not doing that, you got to fight stuff, and then you're going to spend your downtime like making sure you're ready for the next fight because it's in the next room. No, that's crap. That's what I'm saying. A lot of modern role-playing adventures, once again, not only Dungeons and Dragons, there are a lot of other companies out there, they just spew shit out like that too. Someone else says, I just missed the giant fold-out maps for settings. Agile Monk with a $4.99 super chat. Oh, look at this. He's plugging his own release. Consortiums and Zendria world setting are at the printers. So there'll be a new open setting. Yep. Very nice. Very cool. All right. I'm going to wrap up with chat here, and then we will move on. Tim Johnson says, Tim the Sorcerer approved enemies trademark. I'm guessing that's trademark. Omanal says, we miss reaction and morale rolls. I keep that stuff in. I take that stuff into account in Call of Cthulhu adventures, where it's like, oh, yeah, we're gangsters. We're not necessarily here to die to the last man. Like, we're skedaddling. Gretchen says, 2 combats in Call of Cthulhu, that'd be a meat grinder. Yeah, but you got to realize they usually run like 5-hour sessions. At least. So, Wild Hunter was talking about Mistborn, First Law, Stormlight Archives, Wheel of Time, Harry Potter, Narnia, Blood and Bone, etc. as far as settings. Yeah, there are some settings out there I'm kind of surprised we've never seen role-playing games for. I'm like, really? Cedric's Game says, I feel you on that, Jeff. There's a divide between the vast majority of dungeon hack and slash RPGs and the more rare non-dungeon, more actual role-playing games like Warhammer Fantasy, good old Wifrip, and Old World. Yeah, that's one thing that Cubicle 7 Entertainment does really, really well. And that is they put together adventures that feel unique, make the player characters feel unique, make the player characters feel unique to the game master, and challenge the game master with doing more than just, okay, well, all right, get ready, roll for initiative. Omanel says the problem I found is DMs think players rolling dice means they're engaged. No, I don't see it. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not the problem. I'm just saying, thank God, I have never thought that way. When players are talking to each other about what's going on in the game, that's when they're engaged. Even when like they're disagreeing about what sort of tactic to use, that's when they're engaged. When they're rolling dice, they're just rolling dice. Wild Hunter says, I'm looking forward to D&D 5e Star Wars The Acolyte. Ouch! No Limelight Productions is enjoying the stream tonight. Thank you. Glad you are. Anyway, Omanal says, no one reads the rules. Yeah, I know. That drives me nuts. God forbid you try to get your players to take a peek at a 20-page section of rules, which is like, okay, this is the core of what you kind of need to know to make my life as a game master easier. Like, no, I didn't ask you if I could pull 5 of your teeth. I just asked you to read 20 pages. Agile Monk said, good stream to recover to. Hopefully it is helping, not making things worse. Oh, now I got a headache. Yes. Kevin R. Smith points out, yeah, people can be rolling lots of dice and not be engaged. Daryl Erritz says, the more I learn about D&D nowadays, the more I can't wait to play some Wifrip. Bard the Bear Wolfson says, I couldn't get my players to role play all murder hobos. See, that's usually the easiest. So we have 51 people watching right now. Sweet. Very cool. The Madman says, rules are instructions. Why read them? Yeah. Nobody reads instructions. Shit, yeah, man. I'll install this stereo in your car. Easy. Dude, you blew up my battery. Didn't you realize you got to disconnect the battery first? That happened to somebody years and years ago. Wild Hunter says, modern D&D GMs seem to have a lot to do, a lot of work. Game masters as a whole do, in my opinion, I think they have to work harder at the game table than they have in the past. The prep work, yeah, I do prep. I believe in prep. But I would think on a whole, GMs probably spend less time with preparation, and it's probably easier as opposed to, a lot more work and a lot more probably frustration running games at the game table. All right. No Limelight Production says, I don't know much about D&D. Don't know much about D&D. Prior to 3rd edition, said, I have a feeling I missed the golden days. All right, this is going to be my final thought because we're going to hit 2 hours, and that is a really long stream. The Mini Chess has joined us. Welcome. There have always been really bad game masters. I have never claimed to be a fantastic game master. I have had people say, hey, man, that's the most fun I've had in a role-playing game, but probably didn't necessarily have to do with me being the game master. Might have, whatever. But there have always been just absolute dog shit game masters and dungeon masters out there. Doesn't matter if it was 1978 or 2018. It just happens. You'll get people who just, they're game masters and they want to tell a story, but it's got to be their story. So you're along for the ride as a player. So you don't have much agency. You got other players, other game masters out there who they are slaves to the rules. And if something comes up that they do not have a rule for, everything's just coming to a screeching halt. And that will happen multiple times in a game session. And rather than say, hey, everybody, you know what? Take 10. Grab something to drink, go use the bathroom. Give me 10 minutes here. No, they'll sit there and make everybody stand there like, not stand there, sit there going, So yeah, so something else I point out all the time. A good game master can take the shittiest role-playing game and weave it into gold. Happens all the time. I don't know about any of you out there, but I have had experiences long ago where I played a game that it was usually like at not a convention, but like a game weekend or game day sort of thing. And really enjoyed it, and then went and bought the rules that the game was built on and was like, what? So that is also something that, you could take the absolute best role-playing game out there, and there are no perfect ones, at least to my knowledge. But you've got some that are just absolutely in your sights where it's like, yeah, this speaks to me. Yeah, I get this. And the game master just completely shits the bed. So it happens. I mean, you can't blame the rule set. You have to kind of blame the game master a lot of times. Snrub Thinks says, by the way, thank you for the kind words regarding Ahidal's Keep and the Adventurer's Companion, though I will forgive you on your quibble regarding the Blue Dragon Hatchling. Yeah, the reality is, and I mentioned this in the review, with fantasy role-playing games, and once again, I did not see like a level, like a recommended level for that adventure. So I was guessing it's like 2nd to 4th-ish. But like low-level characters in a fantasy role-playing game, I think the introduction to dragons to the characters is really kind of a crappy trope now, because we see it all the time. And I know I've had people say, well, the name of the game is Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, I get it. But if you're throwing dragons at first-level characters, number one, they can't really do anything. So there is absolutely no reason why. I mean, if they see one flying somewhere or they saw one burning, the village or whatever, yeah, okay, all right. I probably still wouldn't go there, but okay, I understand that. But if it's like what was it? Was it Tyranny of Dragons, which I was not a fan of? It was the first campaign for 5e D&D. And the first encounter is with like an army, and they've got like a couple of dragons, and it's like, what? And of course, players are thinking, hey, Tesco Love says Fatal is near perfect. All right, I guess we're gonna have to ban Tesco Love. But it's sort of like, okay, so the players can't do anything. And it even said in the adventure, it's like, don't let the players attack the dragons. But then why have them there? I don't like throwing low-level characters into events and stuff where it's sort of like, well, they're just piss ants. They're, the big movers and shakers are here. And then the player characters are like, whatever. No, I don't like that. I don't do that. And to me, I think players need to earn the right to tackle dragons. Like I said, I'm not saying you got to be 15th level before the players get an opportunity to parlay with a dragon or whatever. But the mini chest says, yeah, players will always attack the things you don't want them to. So Jeremy says, yeah, they did 6 players of 3rd level, 4th level for casters. All right. Yeah. It says, not sure why it wasn't included on the cover. I don't know. I do not know. All right. That is it for this time out. Tomorrow night, we are going to take a first look at Rivers of London Underground, Overground. This is a collection of cases for Rivers of London, which I have reviewed. So this is like a collection of adventures that were already out in PDF. I will mention, I have seen some of the artwork already, and I'm like, But they were PDF adventures. So there's that. Plantos says, no, it's one blue dragon assault on Green Nest. Is that it? It's been years. Plantos says, yeah, I ran the whole campaign. It burned me out because I had to change so much because it was so bad. Yeah. I was not a fan of that, and my review reflected that. So anyway. So Chris Lundgren says they've never heard of Rivers of London. It's based on the novels from Ben Abramovich, if I remember correctly, is the last name. It's urban fantasy, a little supernatural to it, but not a bunch. Tesco Love says, yeah, they grabbed that basic role-playing bundle that had Rivers of London. Yes, it did. It's built off of basic role-playing. All right. Anyway, other thing to mention, if you tuned in late, our giveaway tonight is the PDFs of the new updated Old School Essentials Players Book and Referees Book. So I am giving away a copy to somebody who got our trivia question right. In fact, it was Grouchy Lenny. So Grouchy Lenny, send me an email from your email address that is associated with your YouTube account. I will get you a link so you can grab those PDFs. I'm giving another copy away. This is all you got to do. Be a subscriber. Hopefully you give a thumbs up to the video. I can't tell if you do or not. And then in the comment section, leave me a comment out of the 2027 D&D releases we talked about tonight. Which one would pique your interest the most and why? You don't have to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to go buy this. Just be like, yeah, you know what? I would think, yeah, okay. Yeah, I would like to see what they do with Greyhawk. Whatever. And then tomorrow, I will announce the winner. I will just randomly select someone from the comment section. All right. So that is that. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, you get a tip of the cap. Because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company while I'm sharing the news or pontificating about a topic or taking a first look at a game. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. It doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. I really, really do appreciate that. Seriously. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to see here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. If you're watching on a mobile device, got some hype points, feel free to sprinkle a few on. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, be sure to select, hang on, there we go. If you do subscribe, be sure to ring that bell and select all notifications, or I think it just says all. Because that way, not only will you be informed when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube, you'll also find out when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Dragonbane Arcane City of Waves and Flames. I also shared a review of Book of Magic for Dragonbane. Those both hit stores today. So if you are curious about them, by all means, check out my reviews. So Agile Monk with $1.99 super chat. Sorry about the self-promotion. It's fine. I was joking around. Just kidding around. All righty. So I will be back tomorrow once again. Remember, we're going to take a peek at this, get into the running for the contest. I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you once again for watching. And as I say all the time, I certainly hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.